today's video, I'm going to be talking about creating and or maintaining a immersive environment for yourself in your home. And the reason for this is, I have been to Korea, I had a great time, lots of immersion, 3 years worth of it, and now I'm back in the States. I need to maintain my Korean. Also, for beginner learners, there's lots of good ways to really enhance your language learning experience from the get-go, and then develop a good long-term language learning process. So let's get going. Number one, do not use romanization. Romanization is really good for travelers or for international clients when you have to write a name of a place in English. But in general for Korean, the English language and the English writing system is not a very good match. So for example, double consonants, which they're hard enough for American English speakers to say. And when you start writing them down in English, like the word dok, which is rice cake, that's a double D in English. So it's like D-D-E-O-K, D-D-U-K, like even the vowels really aren't that consistent. But if you write it in Korean, it's the same every time. So you can see why it's very important. Let's talk about subtitles. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with subtitles. They can be a crutch, but they can also be quite helpful. And the big differences are the subtitles in English, are they in Korean, and how accurate are they? For beginner learners, I really recommend, and I did this myself, watch songs you like with subtitles, because a lot of the time you can find the lyrics are subtitled both in Korean, which I guess would be closed captions, and again in English. So that way, if you're just wanting to listen to the music, and you can check to see if you're hearing the words correctly up top, and then check the translation at the bottom. Another thing I like is watching reality TV shows. For beginners, I love, and I watched like 100 episodes, I swear, of Running Man, because it's fun to watch. You get introduced to a lot of different places in Korea, so if you travel in the future, you'll be like, oh, well, Running Man went to Cheonju, so maybe I'll go there too. And of course, you can find subtitled episodes all over the internet. And that leads me to dramas. Now, dramas are kind of interesting because there's a lot of different ways to watch them, and I find the subtitling for many dramas is a bit, not mediocre, but I have encountered a lot of dramas through Netflix or Viki or just YouTube fan subs where I'm like, you know, that doesn't really make sense. And Ji-young has seen some with me, and he's like, that's an interesting translation. And I know that when you have TV, you have to translate things differently to kind of hit the target audience you're going for. But as a language learner, I really wouldn't rely on dramas very hard for the good English subtitles. But dramas are a really good way to practice your listening overall and get used to the cadence and feel of the language. So those were all native Korean speaking Korean with medium to good subtitles, which is really important, and it can give you a good feel for the language. However, it's also really good to get level appropriate Korean. And what I mean by this is Korean being spoken at a level that is your level plus one little nudge up. And I find that the Talk to Me in Korean Iyagi series is really good for this because they have a lot of conversations from really beginner to relatively advanced, and you can get the MP3s for that, listen to it while driving, and it's quite nice. The big plus is they also provide transcripts, and often there's conversations about what the words or phrases mean in English as well, so that's quite important. Another way you can access these kind of things is look for YouTubers who are language learners themselves, but at an advanced level. I find like people like Sol Sarang, who is an Australian woman who lives in Korea, and she does a lot of YouTube videos in Korean. So these are another way to get different kinds of input for Korean that's also useful, but could be more accessible for an intermediate learner. Those are all ways to get really good input for Korean, but what about output? Because to be honest, I'm finding my biggest issue is output for the Korean language, which means speaking or writing. And that's because I still hear a lot of Korean and I still encounter a lot of Korean, but I'm speaking a lot less these days, unless it's to Ji-young or my in-laws. So I still use a method that I used when I was first learning Korean, which is to talk to myself in Korean. And you might think I'm a crazy person, but hear me out, okay? If you're a new learner, you have a very limited range of what Korean you can speak. It can be a little hard to do language exchanges when your Korean is going to max out after 5 minutes of conversation. So what I used to do is if I was waiting for a bus, or if I was walking on my own, or if I was cleaning my room, I would just talk to myself in Korean and practice what I had just learned and exactly what I had just learned. And if you're out in public, just whip out your phone, put it up next to your ear, and have a conversation with your imaginary friend. So please don't think I'm crazy, it's all for the sake of learning Korean. But really, talking to yourself gets you used to saying words. If you're constantly just reading words over and over and suddenly you have to say it and it's maybe your 12th time saying it out loud, it's not going to flow very well, especially if it's got really weird pronunciation. For example, there's of course those Hangul words that don't have the same pronunciation as the Hangul has written. So for example, 국립, it's not 국립, it's 국립. And honestly, you have to say that out loud a few times to get used to saying it. So that's a stupid sounding, but very effective for me and a few other people I know, tip. That was speaking, so writing. And to be honest, writing is actually a little bit harder than speaking. I usually recommend, and a lot of my other friends do this too, is have your own pet project. It's getting yourself able to write more, and some people make subtitles, some people do language learning blogs, a lot of people do those Tumblr blogs. I do some vocabulary, but that's not really writing in my opinion. I mean, I'm typing Korean, but I'm not typing sentences and explanations. So there's websites where you can keep a journal in a target language, and then native speakers of that language fix your journal and they make comments on it, and then you go make comments on other people's journals in your native language. So it's like an exchange. I think that's like lang8.com. Except for I always get those weird like dating vibes from those websites. So be careful, use online safety. Though recently there's a lot of apps coming out, like, it's not Kakao, it's one of those like Hello Talk or something. I don't use them. But if you need a language exchange friend, these websites or these apps can be a really nice way to have a writing-based language exchange. If you have any questions about language learning, and especially Korean learning in general, go ahead and put them down below. I will get to them as soon as I see them, and have a good day. So, bye guys.